It's Saturday night, this is Clash of the Titans, and you're with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer, with Kevin O'Sullivan, plus we've got Candice Holdsworth and Benedict Spence stepping in for Jeremy Kyle and Mike Graham. They're fomenting a coup in South Korea. And what a week it's been. Prison chaos, worklessness woes, Gregg Wallace drama, and the Elgin Marbles stirring up tensions again. Roll the titles. Well, with all the excitement of the Prime Minister switching on the Christmas lights in Downing Street, more of which in a few moments, Keir Starmer this week launched his Great Reset. That wasn't a reset. Just 5 months in, the Prime Minister finds himself in need of a fresh set of policies, ideally ones that don't involve killing old people in the winter cold. But instead of giving away lots of shiny new gifts, the British public has had more miserable lumps of coal stuffed into our stockings. In fact, the only people looking forward to spending more time with their families this Christmas are the hundreds of dangerous offenders out on early release because the prisons are bursting. And if you're a crook looking for a job in the new year, don't bother. The welfare system is now so utterly broken that ministers admit it now pays better to Netflix and chill on benefits than to actually go out to work. News which might interest Gregg Wallace, now that his career in TV appears to be well and truly over. There's no doubt the BBC has certainly lost its Elgin Marbles over its handling of the crisis. But why did no one ever just get hold of the pathetic bully Wallace and tell him to keep his shrivelled little black puddings to himself? This middle-class woman of a certain age certainly would have done. Right then, chaps and chapesses, great to have you join us this Saturday night. An awful lot to talk about, an awful lot going on, but I do feel we need to start with the most important event of the week. It is Christmas coming up. We are in December. Benedict Spence, by the way, doesn't think the Christmas starts until the 24th, but that's because he's a Grinch.
Humbug.
Humbug. However, we had the Prime Minister and his wife, standing at number 10 out on the step. She does look like a hostage now. She does. And they were standing there with some very, very awkward-looking people pretending to look festive as this large tree outside Downing Street had the lights turned on. And the excitement was palpable. And if you've not had the misfortune of seeing this yet, you really do want to have a look at this. So let's get in the festive spirit and have a watch and a listen to Keir Starmer getting us excited about Christmas.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay! It worked.
How excruciating was that, Candice?
Oh my gosh, could you have picked a worse person to get us all into the Christmas cheer? I mean,
3.
Yes, and then he even said, I was so nervous. He's like, I was nervous about it, thank goodness. I mean, that's how he views things. And he just gets himself all anxious, and then when it's sort of okay, then he congratulates himself.
He can't even manage to turn on lights with confidence.
Well, he was required to do human, and he can't do human. He isn't a member of the... He's not the same species as the rest of us.
And his poor wife, who has to stand next to him with the earpiece in her ear going, that's it, big smiles, nice and easy, no one gets hurt, everything's very smooth, just make it look all natural. Yes, I really don't want to be here.
And you could tell that the only thing in his mind, being a technocrat, everything has to go right. The only thing in his mind wasn't the fun of Christmas, the countdown to the lights. It's, will it go wrong? I hope it doesn't go wrong.
The lights must go on.
It didn't go wrong. That was a nervous moment. I mean, it's pathetic. Pathetic.
But no wonder, though. I mean, he can't even function with sort of, confidently switching lights on. And no wonder everything in the country is going horribly wrong. Among the things that have gone horribly wrong, although, to be fair, an awful lot of this is on the Tories, and most of it, indeed, is where we are with prisons and a criminal justice system, or two-tier policing, two-tier justice, which we talk about so often, and quite rightly so. But latest report from the National Audit Office, which is basically in charge of how badly finding out and identifying and publicising how badly run our country is and how badly our taxes are being spent, has discovered that it turns out we haven't got enough prison places. I know, we're all surprised. We haven't got enough prison places because the last government, the Tories, decided to actually send people to prison for longer. Which is a good thing, yeah? A lot of these people simply weren't serving enough time. But they didn't think they'd need to build some more prisons to make space for them. And when they did finally start doing it under Boris Johnson, turns out they're way over budget and way overdue. Oh, what a surprise, eh, Kev?
I mean, it's... The word is, people said, why on earth did Rishi Sunak call that election on July the 4th? What a mistake. Well, the word is, he was told about this train crash coming down the tracks of the prisons, that he would have to release thousands and thousands of dangerous people onto the streets, threatening society. And he thought, well, I don't want any of that. So Starmer's had to deal with it. So it is down to the Tories. But
we're all still blaming the Tories because it's 14 years on their watch. That's time to build a prison.
Yeah, I mean, Labour continually gets saying, oh, well, it's down to them, it's their fault. It's really annoying, it's really repetitive, but they're justified in saying so. We need to build more prisons. And here's an idea, because apparently they want to free up 12,000 spaces, 6,000 spaces right now by shorter sentences, making people wear electronic tags at home rather than going to jail. I've got an idea. Why don't we just deport the 10,000 foreigners clogging up our prisons? Only 88,000 prisoners altogether. 10,000 of them are foreigners. I mean, send them home.
I mean, that's part of the problem, isn't it? We can all sit here and blame the Tories. It's easy and fun. But, you know, it is also true. All of these things, it's a Christmas miracle, a holy trinity. But nonetheless, Labour are now in government and they are sitting there saying, yes, this all happened on the Tories' watch. And we'll go, OK. And they go, and the Tories will probably, OK, yes, we're going to have to release a lot of people. OK, yes. What's your long-term solution? I don't know, man. We haven't got a clue. It's
you got me there.
Yeah, it's just like, come on. Like, yeah, what do you expect of us? We're only the government.
But this is the thing. It's so obvious. I mean, if you're going to put people away for longer, you have to build more prisons. I remember tackling David Cameron on this in 2012, and I said we need more prison places. He goes, you'd have to build a lot more prisons. It would cost a lot more money. And I went, put my taxes up. I will pay more taxes for that to happen.
Well, exactly. And I think this is where I do agree with Kemi Badenoch when she talks about this being a systems problem. It absolutely is. I mean, Keir Starmer criticised the Conservatives about everything that was happening, but once he's in power, he's found himself making the exact same decisions because the system is just so rotten, and this is what it causes you to do. It leaves you with these rotten choices.
And we're constantly told there's no money to do these things, but there always seems to be money to do other things. That we don't want our money spent.
How much are we spending on asylum seekers right now? 5.6 billion.
In this last 5 minutes?
Yes.
I mean,
how much should we spend on the NHS every 5 minutes? You know, a new aircraft carrier an hour or something like that.
5.4 billion a year on the asylum seeker crisis, 11.6 billion pounds going abroad for green projects in foreign countries, 22 billion on carbon capture schemes, and so on and so forth.
It's always money, isn't there?
Spend it on prisons, for God's sake.
Taxing our own farmers to death while subsidising foreign farmers.
Exactly. It's mad. But we've actually got, prisons minister in Timpson, who's appointed, unelected, by the way, and basically believes that prison, is not good. Prison doesn't work. Well, no, when you send someone to prison on their 60th offence for 6 months, no, I doubt very much you're going to rehabilitate him and you're going to really change the course of his life. But if you actually sort of we did actually spend the money, and countries like Norway do this, and they spend an absolute fortune, because funnily enough, it costs more to rehabilitate and educate people, get them off drugs and do all that for a longer period of time than it does to just lock them in a prison cell 23 hours a day, peeing into a pot next to 3 other people. Now, that doesn't work either. But the main thing is, prison doesn't work as a deterrent because no one thinks they'll end up in prison, and they're quite right. They probably won't. But neither does a community sentence, because no one is going to be deterred by that.
It's interesting, though, of course, you mentioned Norway. It does actually have quite a good rehabilitation rate, very good prison system. What is Norway? What can it do that we could also do but choose not to? What does Norway have? Oh, that's right, it's a petro-state. It's literally got all of that North Sea oil. Who else has North Sea oil? Could it be us? Who else is built literally out on an island made of coal and gas? Could it be us? But we have the highest energy prices in the developed world because we choose not to. All of this, I know that we're talking specifically here about prisons and justice. All of this comes down to bad government policies on things like energy. We could have the cheapest, we have the most expensive. That has a knock-on effect on things.
And then we could afford to do other stuff.
And remember what prison is for. Too many of our current generation of politicians, left-wing Tories, Labour, Lib Dem, they believe that prison is primarily for rehabilitation. Well, it isn't. It's primarily to punish people. And
get them off the street.
Get them off the street. So this idea of cancelling all short-term sentences, I think, is a disaster. And it's an absolute untruism that short, sharp sentences don't work. They do shock a lot of people.
Frighten the living daylights out of me.
It's a warping.
Listen, if we didn't have prisoners as a deterrent, you wouldn't be alive.
Exactly right. I've been fully rehabilitated rehabilitated.
But there's such a mismatch, I think, between the attitudes in the government and what people want. I feel like attitudes have hardened massively amongst the people on so many issues, on prisons, on immigration, and the government is way more liberal on it.
Candice, you can't possibly listen to what the people want, otherwise you get nasty things like Brexit. And
Yeah,
we
well,
can't
there
have
you are
that
then.
now, can we?
But it's
the barbarous people.
That's what the attitude is. By the way, they let us sit on jury still, which is nice. It's only a matter of time. Anyway, I mean, it used to be, by the way, only people who were retired or unemployed if you were sitting on a jury. Now, everyone, I did it a couple of years ago, everyone's allowed to do it. We haven't got enough lawyers, haven't got enough prison guards, but we've got enough jurors because we've got a lot of people who've got time on their hands. But I want to talk about that with you, Candice, because I know you've been looking into the worklessness crisis, particularly the sickness benefit crisis, and the numbers are absolutely staggering.
Yes, so we've known since basically COVID that the number of people claiming sickness benefits has ballooned. And everyone's called it a mystery, and it's so weird, and we don't understand what it is. But now there's actually been a lot of research, and recently in this week, some really good investigative journalism by the former editor of The Spectator, Fraser Nelson, which has showed that people earn more on sickness benefits than they get working on the minimum wage job. So that tells you that it's just simple.
Candice, that's not new. I mean, it's more than 4 million people are now claiming long-term sickness basis.
No, it's going to be 4 million in a few years.
Yeah,
It's
but
just to 3 now,
we're signing off, I believe I'm right in saying 15,000 a week are getting long-term sickness notes, so meaning they never really have to work again. Meanwhile, I think it's 9.4 million people are economically inactive. Loads of those people aren't even claiming benefits, they're just not doing anything. And I think that actually what we've got in this country, let's be frank about this, we've got a laziness crisis. I think the COVID crisis, the long-term furlough scheme, recalibrated the mindset of this nation. We used to be hardworking, we're not anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I think it's very important to distinguish between there are people, these not economically active or economically inactive people. That also includes, students who actually do some work occasionally, people who are carers, mums and dads looking after very young children at home. Yeah, they're working, those people. But we're talking about the people who should be out in paid work, but also crucially in full-time paid work. There's an awful lot of people who are actually, they work 12 hours or 16 hours a week and they claim benefits, they've got everything else topped up. But the incentives, and Fraser Nelson's documentary was absolutely superb. Yes. It totally exposed just the incentives are all wrong. And there's always been this patronising attitude, I think, by a lot of sort of middle class metropolitan elites, this attitude towards, especially on the left, this sort of, the poor people over there, they're not like us, they do different things. No, everybody is motivated by the same rational self-interest, and that's what they're doing.
Do you know, it's the ease with which you can get long-term sickness benefits. Do you know the guaranteed way? It's pretty much 100% guaranteed you'll be signed off long-term sick if you go to your doctor, and of course you go mental health problems, and if you then cite suicidal thoughts, you're out of you're in the clear.
I feel that you're all being a little unfair. Speaking on behalf of the feckless and underemployed, do you guys have any idea what it's like having to listen to an alarm clock every morning and wake up? Honestly, if I was offered this amount of money, which I will be when I have my appointment next week to try and get myself signed off permanently unwell with mental health, I would go for that in a second. And it's only my laziness that has prevented me from actually getting down to the benefits office up to now. Look, if the system provides these sorts of things, actually, in many ways, it is the smart thing to do. And all I can say is we clearly have millions of very intelligent people who have gamed this system. We should be putting them to better use. That's not their fault.
Yes,
that's the system's.
If they could use their powers for good, not evil.
I don't think they're that intelligent.
It's becoming normalised, though, because you've got certain areas of the country where you've got a quarter up to a half of people on some form of these benefits.
Grimsby,
53%.
The majority of people in Grimsby are on benefits.
Yes, so there's no social stigma anymore. So there's no sort of, I don't want to use words that are too unkind, but in the past, you wouldn't want to be seen as someone who wasn't contributing, playing your part. But now, like if your whole town...
But we need to bring back shame. We need to, and not for people who need to get benefits, to get, they've just got made redundant, they're all people who've disabled, or, I mean, in that documentary, one of the people who was interviewed by Fraser Nelson was a man who had been a taxi driver and he had had quadruple heart surgery. Of course he couldn't work, but then he wanted to go back off the sick, and he's working part-time. But But he says it's crazy. No one answers my letters. No one will reassess me.
He wanted to come off benefits and they wouldn't let him.
Remember his point, he's better off working part-time and claiming the benefits. And he says, this is crazy.
You're
Why
going to
would I
cash
work
this check and you're going to
full-time
like
for
it.
less money?
But that's what's happened
work
since
and you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, well, exactly.
No, but I mean, you mentioned you need to bring back social stigma, but of course this also goes back to what we were talking about, the crime epidemic in this country, and this mad idea that you can enforce change through social stigma by community centres. It doesn't exist
Something
anymore.
has changed in that respect. To put it into focus, I had a businessman from Grimsby on my show the other night to discuss just this point. You got more than 53% are on benefits. I said, no jobs going then in your underprivileged town. He said, no, there's plenty of jobs and a lot of them are well paid.
Yeah.
He said, but we have generations, families who regard the family trade as being on benefits.
Yeah, and they think everyone else is a mug.
Exactly.
But this has been going on for a really, really long time, and it's got worse and worse and worse. To his credit, Ian Duncan Smith, when he was Work and Pensions Secretary, really tried to get on top of this. They had the best record under him for actually getting workless families sort of back into work. But this is devastating impact. I think the devastating impact is on the individual whose life is just completely wasted, their children, because the impact on the kids is huge. If you've got a parent out of work, the chances of you ever getting work, but the impact on the economy, we haven't got enough people to do the jobs. We can't grow. And the demographics now, Candice is doing a job on all her own, having babies for this entire nation. Mother of 18 or something, I think, at the last
population up.
She's doing it on her own. She, come on, guys, you've got to help out. But we have an ageing population. Yeah. It's a good thing we're living longer. That's a great thing. But we're not having enough babies. And I only had one. I've not done replacement for, shame on me. I should be shamed, handmaiden style. But this is it. We need everybody who's able to work to be working.
But this is why you see so much anger with this amongst younger people. Because I remember when Benefit Street came out a few years ago, people thought it was a bit controversial, but they weren't bothered by it. Now people are like, I'm paying huge amounts in tax.
Yeah.
I can't afford to buy a house. I'm paying ruinous rents. I can't have a child. I can't have a second child.
Yeah.
And no ways.
We need to have empathy. We need to have sympathy, but we need to offer solutions. But we also need to have not just the carrot. We're going to have to have
We also need to have something better than bored doctors. So somebody comes in, a lot of mental health, I've got a backache. Yeah, all right, whatever.
They shouldn't be doing this.
We should have a stricter system by which people are written off for long-term work. Like assisted dying, you'll have 2 doctors and a judge. How about that?
Oh, no, I want the village hall. Where if someone comes up in front, we go, right, let's agree. Does this person deserve to have it off? My mum was an NHS GP, and she said she used to have patients who'd come in. There were various GPs in the surgery, and they would come in and they'd say, oh, God, it's you. Why? You're not going to sign me off sick, are you? And she'd say, no.
Yes.
Because it's not good for you.
But it used to be crazy. I mean, I think about when my grandfather was a child and he was forced to drop out of school basically to support the family.
Yeah.
When his father could no longer work. He was very, very ill with tube TV, which people used to get.
You can't send children up chimneys anymore because Khan's banned them.
It's outrageous that we shouldn't be able to do that anymore.
He wants to ban chimneys.
Anyway, coming up, plenty more to talk about. Coming up next on Clash of the Titans, more on the Gregg Wallace drama and the Elgin Marbles row rumbles on. Why are the metropolitan elites so obsessed with the darn things? Stay tuned. Welcome back to Clash of the Titans. Right, Kevin O'Sullivan, over to you. Who or what do you want to talk about?
Well, guess what? Gregg Wallace. Now, Gregg Wallace, the MasterChef host, it's a difficult and complex issue for me because I can't wait for him not to be on the TV anymore. He's always been the most irritating man on the box. He's got one question. So, Benedict, why MasterChef? That's his only question. Plus, he gets loads of money. He gets £500,000 a year to bellow units of time. You've got 2 minutes.
To be fair,
2 minutes.
know.
I mean, and he's got no expertise. He just goes, that is lovely. That is lovely.
He's not even a chef. He's a barrow boy.
He's a fruit and veg man. He's got no expertise. So I can't wait to see him not on the TV anymore, which won't be long. That said, I don't like the cancellation process.
Exactly.
I don't know I don't like what's happening now. Everyone climbing on the bandwagon. My God. I mean, Vanessa Feltz 2 days ago filmed a special video to say, this Gregg Wallace is a disgrace now. I've got a story of his appalling behaviour. Didn't happen to me, happened to someone else who I'm not going to name. I mean, talk about climbing on the bandwagon. The other awkward thing for me is, I used to be a TV critic. I've been around the TV industry a long time, and I've heard stories about Gregg Wallace for a long, long time.
That's it. These things are always known in the industry, aren't they?
Yeah. And you've got a lot of people are saying, "Oh, this is ridiculous. You know, this man is getting vilified and cancelled. You know, just because he made a few bawdy jokes." I'm afraid, from what I hear, it's a lot worse than that. You know. Women being made to cry. These are the allegations. He denies.
Some of this stuff is borderline. Look, he's denied the allegations. These are allegations only. It's no criminal investigation. But some of these things, I mean, Candice, you know, women in the workplace. Some of these things are, you know, if you're touching women without their permission, I'm sorry, that's a criminal
exactly right.
issue.
So a lot of blokes in particular go, "Oh, come on, you can't make a saucy joke in the office." Well, you know, I've made a few saucy jokes in the office from time to time.
And we punch you,
as you well know. But I don't walk into the office wearing just a sock over my manhood, completely naked, and then
it was a string vest as well.
You know, so we should stress, by the way, Gregg denies any wrongdoing. But
sock or ankle sock?
You know, so he because he should be socked immediately because of the cancellation process, the rigid cancellation process. He's finished. He's never coming back. We know that. But the last element of this to discuss is the enormous hash the BBC has, of course.
Do you have to give him a little round of applause? Well done, BBC. You've made it worse.
What the hell are they doing? Saying, right, we're going to carry on with MasterChef The Professionals, but we're cancelling the Christmas special. What is that about?
This was the madness, I thought.
Yes, it's total madness. It's just gotten silly now. Like, the guy does not need to be scrubbed from history. We are grown-ups. We can hold two thoughts in our heads at once, that maybe what he did is wrong, but also we can watch MasterChef.
No, apparently it's triggering.
It's triggering. Oh, my gosh. Someone actually said that with a straight face, that it's triggering. Look, as women, we know in this industry, when I look back to some things that happened when I was in my early 20s, pretty unacceptable, actually. And I don't think I was young enough to deal with it at the time. Now that I'm older, I absolutely would say something. And I think that's something we have to normalise as well, challenging that sort of behaviour.
But I think it's been very interesting how many men, and I've been talking about this on my show all week, because I know you have as well, and a lot of people go, "Oh, for goodness sake, move on." As you said, there are lots of different aspects to this. There's the BBC inadequacy, there's the Stalinist, Orwellian-style cancellation. He never existed. Oh, no, it never happened. And again, cancelling a show that's very successful. I've never watched it. I've got no interest in watching it. I think he's particularly boorish anyway. No interest. But people want to watch it. If you don't want to watch it, if you're traumatised by it, don't watch it. But this whole idea that cancellation must be 100% complete. But I have got an issue also with the number of men. I have quite a few people calling up my show saying, "Oh, this is all woke. You can't take a joke. You've all worked with me. I like the bands. I have no issue with bad language.
You're many things, but you're not woke.
I'm not woke at all. I actually lament the fact that obviously it's too woke right now. But we're not talking about that." And I said to one of the guys who called on my show, he goes, "Oh, come on, he didn't do anything. Well, the allegations are not that serious." And I said, "Do you have a daughter?" No. You had a niece. And I said, "OK, so your niece is in the office." And this is one of the allegations, again, being denied, where a woman contestant on the show, she bends down to pick something up, and Gregg Wallace is standing in front of her, and he basically mimes as if she's giving him oral sex. This is the workplace, right? And I said, "How would you feel as her uncle watching that? And how do you think she would feel?" And there are an awful lot of men saying, "Oh, you can't take a joke." Sorry, guys. This is no longer the Benny Hill show. It's not the 1970s. No. Women don't have to put up with this stuff anymore. And if that guy had done any of those things or said any of those things to me, he wouldn't be able to appear on television ever again.
And so a lot of people saying, "Well, you know, the BBC hired this chirpy Cockney character. What did they expect?" Well, I think that's very unfair to Cockneys.
Patronising.
Very unfair to Cockneys.
Very telling.
And the BBC also is claiming, "Oh, we're being so transparent and honest about this. We're reporting it on the 9 o'clock, on the 10 o'clock news, etc., etc." Yeah, who broke the story? I remember it was the Daily Telegraph. It wasn't the BBC. Sat on this. They knew exactly what was going on for a long time.
This is the thing, isn't it? And you mentioned that there are lots of allegations that have been known for a very long time. It's only when they're backed into a corner and they can't avoid it that they go, "Well, we better disappear him then. He better go off into the ether." But it's a real shame. I'm not a fan of MasterChef, but it's a shame for everybody else who's worked on this programme to see their work sort of go up in smoke. I mean, if you're going to go down the line, it's very triggering for people, you're going to think, right, well, at this stage, we're going to be... Who could MasterChef be triggering for? I don't know, anorexics, people who work in the culinary industry, all sorts of people could find it triggering. Is, just any old complaint just goes in and goes, "I find this particularly triggering. All right, take it off air."
Well, just don't watch it.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
We're just months away from somebody seeing something on the BBC News and going, I find that triggering, and the BBC going, well, we better not cover that then, haven't we?
Think about it. You go Jimmy Savile, Hugh Edwards, Rolf Harris, Russell Brand. What's the common denominator in this story?
Some of those, by the way, just allegations
when
rather
it comes to the BBC,
really.
what's the common denominator? It is that the BBC knew all about the allegations and sat on them and kept the secret. And they've done it again. They do it. They will never, ever learn.
Here's the other common denominator, and this is a problem, and having had a few forays into the world of TV, and I think this is one of the worst problems, is this delineation of like the talent, the stars, and everyone else. So they can get away with it in a way and behave in a way that apparently is completely and utterly acceptable. And by the way, almost entirely male staff in every single area. It's always men and the power thing. And the thing what people forget is, and Candice, I wonder if you agree with me on this or not. And I'm not just playing like the woman club, but genuinely, in my experience, the men who do the non-stop sexual banter, and I think Gregg Wallace genuinely, from what we can gather, has basically got sexual banter Tourette's. The guy can't stop doing it. Is that actually, it's not, people think, oh, it's just a laugh, it's just fun. It's not, it's a power game.
Of course it is.
It's a power game.
Because they know, they recognise the hierarchy, they know where you are in the pecking order, and they know most likely you are not going to challenge it. And I do know an instance, I won't mention the journalist by name, but I remember when she did, and she got put through the ringer for it, and everyone said to her, you should have just taken it, you know, it's all just fun. And so no one wants to stand up.
This story is not about, Gregg Wallace has tried to throw women, middle class women of a certain... This story is not about, he's trying to frame it that it's about the way working class blokes behave at work. This story is not about working class cockneys at work. This story is about Gregg Wallace's personality, about his character. That's what it's about. And he will go, what will happen is he will go, the next series of MasterChef will feature someone else, a new co-star in a wheelchair, and everybody will forget Gregg Wallace.
I've seen your impression of him. I think you could do it. And
I would pay good money. And he's got just as much sodding expertise in the field of being a chef. They should get MG to do it. He's a great chef. Right, we're going to move on. And we're going to talk about something. I can't tell you how many rows Kevin and I have had off air about this, about whether or not this is a story that matters. I'm really intrigued to find out where Benedict Spence stands on this, because he's like one of those posh cultured people. He went to private school, you know. I want to talk about the Elgin Marbles and where they are and where they are not. Over to you, Benedict.
Well, of course, this is the on-running saga that has quite literally been going on for thousands of years.
Millions losing sleep about it every night.
Yes. You know, the ancients used to chisel into their tablets about the Parthenon, and we're still talking about the Parthenon marbles now. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is earlier this week, he had a conversation with his Greek counterpart, and as usual, the subject of certain items in the British Museum came up, and there has been some suggestion that Keir Starmer is even more open to the idea of repatriating these inanimate objects to Greece than any of his predecessors. The Greeks are very keen on this for obvious reasons. You know, it came from the Acropolis. It's a very important part of their culture. They also have the slightly awkward fact that most of their culture is in fact in Turkey, and they physically can't get that back. So they see us as a soft touch, and that's why they're lobbying us and the Germans to a lesser extent for some stuff that's there. But of course, this also comes off the back of the fact that Britain is in a rather charitable mood at the moment. We are giving away anything and everything to anybody who asks. We give away islands. We give away, seats on the UN Security Council. So actually, what does it matter? A couple of bits of marbles here or there. Look, it's a really embarrassing time to be British. On a serious note, I know that the Elgin Marbles are not at the top of most people's lists, but it comes as sort of part of a package, and that is that right now, this government, which is sort of supported by newspapers that care really about how Britain is interpreted and seen on the international stage, we are perceived as being weak, we're perceived as being a soft touch, and if they'll come for this, and if we're happy to give these things away, they will come for anything, and it's just going to be an on-running saga for the next 4.5 years.
Candice?
Yeah, I've got such an issue with it, because I know the perspective from which Keir Starmer is doing it. He's not saying, you know, maybe that they were taken in a controversial way, it's part of their heritage. No, he thinks Britain was uniquely evil. And that's what it is. And he's subjecting it.
Britain, doesn't he?
Yes, it's, you know, this sort of
he's
like...
embarrassed by it.
I know, and I've seen so many exhibitions and museums have been ruined by this new woke inquisition. I mean, you can't go anywhere now without just getting like this rundown.
Oh, you get these little labels telling you, oh, but by the way, this person, you've got a picture of this bad person.
Yes, you even had some Welsh politician telling people to avoid racist buildings.
Racist libraries, wasn't it?
the painter's second cousin owned a slave, that sort of thing.
No, but this is the mad thing. So when we were talking about this, you're like, no one is sitting in the pub going, I feel so strongly where some old stones are. I didn't want to see them in the British Museum. I didn't want to see them when I was in Athens. I don't care. I really actively don't care. Only to the extent I care. And not in a Stephen Fry way. Stephen Fry, who cares desperately about these sort of things, he's been wittering on about it all week, but also cares about whether there are women allowed into the Garrett Club, his private members club, even though he joined when there were only men. Then he suddenly gets bothered by it. I mean,
This is my neighbour you're talking
about. The concerns of sort of elite lefties are just hilarious. But I do think if we did give them back, it would be a terrible precedent. Now, the British Museum are suggesting that they're put out on permanent loan. So basically, you can have them back, but officially, legally, we're not giving them back to you. And of course, they're in Greece. They're saying, no, that's not good enough. But if we did, we literally, in 10 years' time, won't have a single picture in an art gallery. We won't have a single item in a single museum because everyone and his dog is going to come for us and say, can we have that back, please? Can we have that back, please? Because you were colonial invaders and we want that back.
Wouldn't that be the most...
a lot of stuff, though,
No, but this is the thing. I mean, that would be the most classically Keir Starmer legalese workaround. Well, technically, we still own them. Yeah, but are you ever going to see them again? No. I mean, the thing is also, these are one of the few things, in fact, that we did not pillage. You know, I do admit, we took a lot of things. We bought these things legally. We absolutely did. And we've even got the paperwork to prove it. It's one of the few things that you can say, actually, we're bang to rights on this. And you don't necessarily have a say. But if you look at sort of what's going on right now...
Why don't we sell them back to them?
Well, we could sell
a great deal of money.
Yeah, but with inflation... I was going to say...
You want the Elgin Marbles?
Greece has got no money, and B, with inflation in this country, it won't be worth anything by the time it gets here. But, the thing is also... And there is a serious point to this, right? What's going on right now in the Middle East, in Syria, for example, and we saw this during the early days of the Syrian civil war, Islamic, jihadists and all that thing, taking important bits of international history, destroying it because they could. And I'm sorry, Greece is not Syria, but still, the point of the British Museum is not, in fact, for us to go, isn't it wonderful, we're better than everybody else. It is an international centre when people come from around the world to an international city where they can see vitally important things that we all know, for as long as they're here, they are safe. Often when you hear things, the Benin bronzes are another example, these are things that have in fact been given back to Nigeria and then sold again by the Nigerian government, who then demand them back.
And wouldn't have existed to be sold anywhere if we hadn't got them.
A lot of other countries' governments are a lot less scrupulous than ours are. And I just think we are being, again, I'll say it again, we're being taken for fools by the international community that we seem to want to respect us so much.
But we get ourselves into this mess, don't we? Because the government sort of ends up giving in and again, it's where we're with the Chagos Islands, it's where we are, and all the talk about the Caribbean countries asking for reparations for slavery, but no one seems to be asking the West African governments whose chieftains and kings sold their fellow black people to the Western whites to take them on those slave ships outrageously. If you give an inch, these countries will take a mile.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I don't give a damn whether we give them back or not, but I do agree with you. The syndrome could be worrying. I mean, there's a very big Easter Island statue as you walk into the British Museum, for example. That is at the centre of a similar dispute.
I think we're just all surprised he's been in the British Museum, aren't we?
Yeah.
He cares more about an Easter Island statue than the
Doesn't he?
He does care a little bit about this stuff. We've got you.
It's better to look at, it really is. No, seriously.
It is better.
More artistic merit.
But I agree with you. This sort of impulse on the likes of Starmer and his socialist crew, to hate Britain, give everything back, give everything away.
I feel guilty about
You want
everything.
islands, you want statues here,
I mean, the best one is the Rosetta Stone, which the Egyptians want back. Where did we find the Rosetta Stone? It was in a farm building's wall. They didn't know what it was. They didn't care about it. This vitally important thing. All of these countries, they're just going to say, oh, well, now that you value it, we quite want it back, even though we didn't like it at the time.
I mean, it's all part of global history. And I think the point you make, the very practical point, think how many people will see it in the British Museum. So many people will see it. And I just feel awful that future generations won't be able to go there and see the things that we've had and have the experiences that we have. And that's the legacy that they're going to be leaving us with.
Well, you could always go to the Parthenon and go back and see them there if we give them back.
Oh, you could, but...
I've seen the rest of them in the Parthenon, in the museum there. But
you think
I've got to be honest with you.
I mean, didn't it blow up because they used it as a weapons store?
I went there and it's all dilapidated.
Well, that's my point. It's fallen down because they valued it so much that they literally used it as a gunpowder storage, and then it blew up.
Quite literally.
On that
really
note,
important.
We really care about it.
On that gunpowder note, I'm afraid I'm going to have to call it a day. I am fascinated that you managed to get him to care enough to talk about.
I promised I wouldn't say a word on the Elgin Marbles.
I'm not going to talk about it. It's a load of nonsense. We made it culture wars, and now you care.
I can't shut my mouth about anything. You know that.
I love it, I love it. I hate to tell you, that's all from us on Clash of the Titans this week. A very big thank you, well, sort of, a small thank you to Kevin O'Sullivan, a huge thank you to Candice, Holdsworth and Benedict Spence for joining us today. Remember, you can catch more from us on Talk all week. Tune in on your radio, online or on your smart speaker. And don't forget to subscribe to Talk on YouTube. Goodbye.